A still image. The CCTV frame freezes a young woman in a hotel lobby, sitting on the sofa, fingers clenched. Her gaze fixed on an invisible point as the automatic doors whisper, suitcases scrape the floor, and the cold afternoon light frames the counter. The lobby breathes normalcy. The heart doesn't. The air seems to hold its breath. She came in. Why didn't you ever leave? Content warning. This video depicts violence and assault. Watch with caution and take care of yourself. March 2011, Denmark. At 2:48 p.m., a 41-year-old man crosses the lens, gives a brief smile at the counter, picks up the key, and finds the young woman. They disappear down the hallway, pass under the third-floor camera, and disappear behind door 314. Afterward, only noise, an empty elevator descending, the unforgiving clock, a phone ringing until it goes to voicemail, a mother clinging to the window waiting for her daughter's cell phone to light up. The hotel is on automatic, but something has already gone wrong. In the silence of the cameras, every detail becomes a scream. Receipts, schedules, messages that shouldn't exist. Sign up, activate the bell, new cases every day. The story is just beginning. Who was Sophie? At 19, she lived in the uneasy in-between space between adolescence and what they call adulthood. She lived with her parents, shared the routine of a quiet house with them, and maintained in her bedroom a universe of her own made up of music, notes, and open tabs. In the previous months, she had fought a silent battle with depression, irregular sleep, capricious appetite, a fatigue that wouldn't go away. School, once a predictable haven, eventually fell behind. Absences became weeks, until dropping out seemed less an act of rebellion and more a way to stop failing. In her family, there was love and concern, but also the noise of conversations that didn't reach the heart of the matter. Sophie spoke little, moved around the house as if avoiding causing waves, spending more time on the computer, where the presence of others seemed less threatening than real eyes. She wanted simple things: autonomy, a job, the chance to start over outside the city. On the internet, someone noticed this chink. He introduced himself as TK, and starting in mid-January turned random messages into a routine. Good morning, good night, pointed questions, disarming compliments. He was 41 years old and had the vocabulary of someone offering maps, financial support, travel, a fresh start. In Germany, the promise that far away she could breathe. Daily attention turned into affection, trust, and trust came with rules. Absolute secrecy, no telling friends or family, avoiding social media clues, deleting conversations. TK claimed to be protective, but he set limits, schedules, meetings, plans that depended on silence. On good days, the messages were a beacon. On bad days, they were a lifeline. Sophie began to believe that, with him, life could regain a horizon. Talking to TK was like finally finding someone who listened without judging, and therefore someone who could guide without being noticed. Between needs and promises, the pact tightened, discreetly, until a concrete invitation began to take shape. It started as a fantasy and became an address. In his messages, TK repeated his promise: "I'll get you out of there. I have a plan. You can start over in Germany. I'll take care of everything." With each good morning came a map. With each good night, a condition: absolute secrecy. No clues, no screenshots, no confidences. When the conversations left the future and entered logistics, the new life took on a time and place. He set schedules, suggested less busy routes, asked to delete the history and turn off the location. He talked about flights, a temporary room, a job that was already lined up. Each promise came in a calm, paternal tone, like someone smoothing the surface before a jump. He sent the name of the hotel, the street, the instructions. Arrive discreetly without a large suitcase, phone on silent. Bring only the essentials. I'll take care of the rest. Don't answer unknown numbers, he warned. Each instruction sounded like care, and also like control. Sophie read and reread, rehearsed responses, mentally reviewing what she would leave behind. On the appointed day, she left with a light backpack and a heavy heart, her eyes wandering from the mirrors. At the station, she took a deep breath, leaning her forehead against the train window. Outside, platforms and announcements streamed down like rain. The windows became a mirror of doubt. The countryside flowed backward. The clock raced forward. As she got off, the cold March wind grazed her face. The hotel appeared discreet, practical, impersonal, as if unwilling to be noticed. The lobby had pale light, the smell of cleaning products, tired plants, a small doorbell. Sophie sat on the sofa, her hands clasped, her cell phone vibrating with the latest message, "I'm coming, trust me." At 2:48 p.m. he entered, a confident man, the brief smile of someone who already knows the route. At the counter, documents, a card, a signature, low voices, the jingle of a key. The receptionist smiled politely. The sound of the stamp was dry. A glance at her, a restrained nod. They walked side by side to the elevator. The mirror reflected back two strangers who seemed intimate. The panel lit up slow numbers. 1, 2, 3. She saw the ceiling's reflection frame a second of hesitation. In the hallway, the carpet muffled footsteps and short phrases. "Everything's fine. It'll be fine." The metal plate glowed. 3:14. He swiped his card. The light turned green. The lock gave way. Sophie took a deep breath, adjusted the strap of her backpack, crossed the threshold, and the door closed, leaving the hallway still again. Inside, the distant noise of the lobby seemed very far away. The camera on the ceiling blinked, and the frame cut. In the reception area, the clock continued to tick away. Beneath the exit sign, the world remained oblivious. Night fell, and the house was in a state of waiting. Messages left unreturned. Calls went straight to voicemail, the cell phone beeping louder than usual. The promise to return for dinner went unfulfilled, and as dawn crept in, the uneasiness became a burden. In the morning, the mother made the obvious circuit, called friends, neighbors, the hospital. Nothing. At the police station, the cold counter and the clerk's pen produced a clear, almost automatic response of legal age, history of depression, school dropout, all consistent with a voluntary disappearance. Fill out the form. Wait 24 to 48 hours. She must be cooling her head. The word stuck like a barb. Voluntary. As if absence were a button you press and that's it. Back in the bedroom, the details screamed otherwise. Her favorite coat draped over the back of the chair, her toothbrush in the cup, the charger plugged in, a forgotten glass of water, half read, and most of all the laptop, closed, silent, like a book interrupted at the best chapter. Her mother sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out the device. The screen lit up a pale blue. Password. She tried dates, names, her childhood nickname. On the third try, she got in. The desktop had the familiar clutter of repetitive icons and unnamed folders, but her cursor went straight to the email. In the inbox, a thread of recent conversations held her gaze. A recurring sender, simple, initials, TK. The messages were long, daily, a patient thread of promises and instructions. They spoke of a new life, of leaving the city, of support, travel, a clean start in another country, and they demanded silence. Don't tell anyone. Delete after reading. Trust me. The mother felt her throat close. Between the exchanges, schedules appeared. A hotel, precise instructions, travel light, no large bags, turn off the tracking. Further down, a short, almost clinical text, scheduled for 1 guy, p.m. I'm at the hotel, come when you're ready. The mouse pointer trembled. She took screenshots, copied everything to a flash drive, took a deep breath. The police station paper read, voluntary disappearance. In the white light of the screen, there was a clear trail that began there on the laptop and refused to be silenced. The turning point began when Sophie's mother entered the police station with Sophie's laptop under her arm and a flash drive in her hand. On the screen, investigators saw what the form didn't capture: the string of messages with TK, the patient tone, the promises of a new life, and above all, a verifiable piece of information: the name of a hotel, the street, and a time-stamped message: I'm at the hotel, come when you're ready. Within minutes, the voluntary disappearance narrative no longer applied. The report was reclassified as a high-risk disappearance, and the case leaped from the lukewarm pile to the brightly lit desk. They signed the chain of viral custody for the material, printed the conversations, copied metadata, and prepared urgent requests to break confidentiality, email, IP addresses, access logs. A brief dispatch was sent to the hotel, demanding immediate preservation of records and images. No DVR overwriting, no check-ins. The manager's phone rang with a clear protocol: freeze guest records for critical days, separate invoices, key reports, and camera maps of the lobby, elevators, stairwells, and corridors on the indicated floor. Shortly after, 2 patrol cars parked discreetly on the narrow street outside. A digital forensics team entered with duplicators and writing pads to clone the CCTV system without corrupting the evidence. Every copied file, every sealed seal, every signature on the media receipt drew a firm line between rumor and evidence. In parallel, another pair combed through the logbook, cross-referencing check-in times with the message window, while the dispatcher forwarded official letters to the telephone company to preserve ERB data. On the investigation room monitor, a mosaic of cameras began to come to life. The lobby, the automatic doors, the elevator that ascends and descends in cycles, the long corridor on the third floor. A blue needle crept across the DVR's copy bar, and the room held its breath as if, in some still unseen frame, a name might finally become a face. In the dark investigation room, the mosaic of screens became a clock. The timeline began in the lobby. At 2:40 p.m., Sophie enters, sits on the sofa, adjusts her backpack strap. The automatic doors breathe. Luggage carts pass by. The receptionist looks up and down. At 2:48 p.m., he appears in the frame, leans against the counter, receives the card, meets the young woman. 2 points that, from that point on, move together. At 2:52 p.m., the third-floor camera captures the footsteps along the carpeted corridor. In the background, the sign, 314. The card squeaks in the lock, the green light, the door closes. The chronology fixes this last frame as if holding breath. After that, only the indifferent movement of the hotel. In fast forward, the lobby accelerates, guests enter, delivery men pass by. A cleaning cart crosses the frame. The elevator rises and falls in regular cycles. The main staircase receives pairs of shoes that don't matter. Not once between the afternoon and the early morning does Sophie's face appear. Midnight, 2:17 a.m., 4:50 a.m., the third-floor hallway remains silent. In the morning, the light changes color. The lobby becomes a checkout rush. At 1:20 p.m. the next day, he reappears in the lobby, walks straight to the exit, and crosses the street. The investigators rewind, fast forward, pause, zoom in. They search from other angles. The elevator camera, the one in the main staircase, the one in the side hall. The images always depict the same absence. He leaves, she doesn't. An eye is missing. And that's precisely where the body can become volume. In the service area, at the back of the building, the camera that should monitor the exit is blind. On the monitor, a gray rectangle with no hours, no flow. The manager confirms. Technical failure, interrupted recording, maintenance recorded, but nothing saved. A blind spot opened on the wrong day. The sequence of frames, so precise at the beginning, now ends at door 314 and reopens in the void behind the hotel, where the lens can't reach. Between these two extremes, the recorded entrance and the never-seen exit, the question takes on the shape of a hallway. Where did what the camera missed go? When the team finally entered 314, the room looked spotless. The bed was straightened, the pillows were lined up, and the faint scent of cleaning product lingered. A scene that tried to convey, nothing happened here. The neutral appearance was short-lived when science entered. The lights were dimmed, scale markers positioned, photos were taken in series. Then, the luminol, under the fine spray of the reagent and the sweep of forensic, light cold spots began to respond. In the bathroom, a bluish halo emerged near the drain, delicate but persistent, repeating itself in small islands in the grout and baseboard. In the bedroom, the wooden bed frame, especially at the headboard junction, reacted in subtle traces, more consistent with contact and dragging than a trivial accident. There were signs of recent cleaning, scrubbing halos that only appear under oblique light, splashes that trace an irregular outline, the different sheen, where the product dried quickly. The team collected samples with swabs, micro-trace tape, and fiber fragments, all sealed and labeled. They also requested the isolation of linens and the retention of bedding from critical days in the laundry room. The hotel report stated that the room had been occupied after the key date, which meant probable contamination. Even so, what resists in corners, under screws, in wood crevices, on metal edges, usually survives cloths and perfumes. To confirm what the chemistry whispered, they brought in the cadaver dog. The K9 walked the perimeter on a loose leash, sniffing the bed, the bathroom, the curtains. He stopped in front of the closet, tense posture, muted breathing, passive alert, repeated. The empty door, clean shelves, no suitcases, but the specific odor dogs recognize, volatile traces that linger on surfaces, was there. They noted sketches, cross-referenced cleaning schedules with electronic key records, and requested that nothing else be touched. Gradually, the hypothesis took hold. Someone bled in the bathroom, there was contact with the headboard, the body was kept in the closet long enough to leave a smell, and then removed. The scene was then carefully cleaned to appear ordinary. Outside, the hallway remained silent. Inside, every inch began to tell a story that appearance tried to deny. Thomas K's car was discreetly collected and taken to the forensic garage. From the outside, nothing stood out. Inside, it smelled recently cleaned, with shiny plastics and carpets that were too smooth, too clean. The technicians started with the basics: photographs, seals on the access points, and fingerprint collection. Then, the detail that separates appearance from substance. In the trunk, oblique light and a forensic vacuum cleaner revealed what cloths couldn't reach. Among the dust particles, 3 long blonde threads emerged, stuck to the carpet fibers. One of them contained the preserved bulb. In the lab, microscopic comparison and DNA would indicate a match with the victim. On the adhesive tapes used for tape lifting, small blue-gray textile fragments with a characteristic weave and sheen caught the eye. Hotel management recognized the pattern of the bedspread in the rooms. Forensics compared control samples from the linens, thread count, fiber type, dye, FTIR spectrum, and everything matched. The trunk's rubber seals, removed and inspected, harbored compacted dust and friction marks running from the inside out, as if something bulky had scraped the edges. Under the forensic flashlight, the cleaning film showed halos of scrubbing and micro-scuffs. The car still spoke another language: soil. Clinging to the base of the carpet and in the crevices of the door sill was a dry mix of light sand, dark clay, and fine organic matter, angular grains, pollen, and microplant fragments that didn't match the soil in Thomas's neighborhood or the hotel's surroundings. In his garage, a folding shovel displayed the same particles along with recent scratches on the metal and a lingering earthy odor, as if it had been used only a few hours before it was seized. Taken together, the vehicle told a silent story. Someone with blonde hair had been there. Fabrics compatible with the hotel's bedding had been transported. The car had visited a third rural location with a different composition and returned. On the trunk floor, discrete compression marks suggested uneven weight for several hours. The narrative that nothing happened clashed with this trunk, which seemed to have traveled an entire route without opening its mouth. Investigators drew ground maps of the region, cross-referenced them with likely routes and antenna timings. From the car, the search ceased to be abstract and gained coordinates. At the first interview, Thomas K arrives dressed up, his voice low, with the confidence of someone who thinks he's been saying no for a whole day. He denies knowing Sophie, denies having been at the hotel, denies any encounter. When investigators slide the lobby stills across the table, she on the sofa, he at the counter, the two of them side by side heading up to the third floor, his denial cracks. But he doesn't give in. He reorganizes his memory and offers the first version. He says it was a short encounter, a light conversation, then an argument, unrealistic expectations, and that at 8 p.m. she got up irritated and left alone. That was it. Across the table, the clock doesn't cooperate. The cameras in the lobby, the main staircase, and the elevators are unanimous. He leaves the next day. She never does. In 3:14, the luminol lights up a blue map in the bathroom, lines on the headboard. The cadaver dog points to the closet. In the trunk of the Volkswagen, 3 long blonde hairs, fibers with a pattern identical to the hotel bedspread, dust from the ground that belongs neither to his neighborhood nor to the hotel's surroundings. The 8 p.m. narrative falls apart due to the lack of a road. Pressured by the combination of silences and chemical reactions, Thomas changes again. The second version emerges. The death was an accident during sex. She panicked. He tried to calm her down, overreacted, then cleaned the room and removed the body because he panicked. He admits the concealment, denies fate. He tries to lean on the absence of the body, as if it were a shadow. The contradiction, however, is physical. Blood where there shouldn't be, the smell of death in the closet, dragging on the trunk's rubber seals, a folding shovel with fresh soil. Without the location, the word accident struggles for breath. The answer comes from what cannot lie: antennas. The breach of cell phone secrecy reveals that, in the early hours of the morning, his device isn't heading down toward Roskilde. It climbs, weaving through ERBs to the north, along Route 6, with long stops in wooded areas and back roads. The schedules coincide with the silent window of the service exit, the only blind lens in the building. And with the checkout register the next morning, the likely route draws a loop toward lakes and little-visited clearings, where dirt roads end in gates and silence. Topographic maps are spread out on the table. Each contour line becomes suspicious. Each secondary access an invitation. The team crosses pings with time windows, fuel consumption, telemetry, and maps the soil in the trunk in GIS layers. Light sand, dark clay, fine organic matter, consistent with wetlands in a specific corridor. The search grid is set up, drones and canine on standby, divers assigned to nearby waters. The perimeter closes in circles, each one tighter than the last. While Thomas repeats tired phrases in the interview room, outside the landscape begins to take shape, and on the map a point begins to pulse. The searches had already become a routine of brush and water, striped tape hanging from branches, dogs sniffing in the wind, drones streaking the sky, maps covered in circles that narrowed by the day. The one who broke the pattern was a maintenance worker on the shore of a lake hidden by thin trees, birch trees that trembled at the slightest breath. He noticed the disturbed earth near the reflecting pool, a fresh rectangle on what should have been compact ground, and a sweet off-putting smell that didn't match the shore. He called. Within minutes, the area was cordoned off. The excavation began slowly, layered, with photos, measurements, sketches. About a meter away, the shovels touched fabric. First, thick black plastic, tightly wound. Outside, strips of duct tape crisscrossed like a cage. When the piece was hoisted, the silence was heavy. The opening took place under a tent, according to protocol. Every cut recorded, every fold preserved, every trace preserved. Inside, a travel bag served as the casing, and encasing what it protected was a recognizable fabric with a weave and sheen that seemed out of place in this setting. The grayish-blue bedspread of the hotel rooms, the chevron pattern, the stitching, the internal label with the same batch number. Everything spoke of a room miles away. The connection was direct. The same fabric that had left fibers in the trunk now enveloped the find. The team sealed the set, numbered the surrounding soil samples, removed plant fragments, and photographed shallow tire tracks on the access trail. The transport continued in a closed vehicle, under guard, to the IML. There, amid cold blades and white lights, the identity left the realm of hope and entered that of proof. The dental records compared to the family's dental records provided confirmation through overlapping and matching points. Name, age, history. Outside, the lake returned the same indifferent reflection. Inside, every millimeter of fabric, every knot in the ribbon, every grain of dirt clinging to the plastic held a path, and while the letterhead sealed an identity, the questions shifted in weight and direction. Because what comes after those margins is no longer up to assumption. In the autopsy room, the cold lights and the clang of metal leave no room for versions. They leave room for facts. The pathologist's report establishes the cause of death with a precision that the word accident cannot support. Asphyxiation by manual strangulation, requiring continuous pressure for approximately 2 to 3 minutes. It's too long for error, enough time for intent. The signs add up like a chorus. Petechiae on the conjunctiva, bruising and edema in the neck structures, marks consistent with sustained compression. On the body, the hands tell a different story. Linear abrasions and bruises on the forearms, wrists, and inner arms, typical signs of defense. On the thighs, marks of restraint that don't rhyme with consent. Additional tests indicate recent sexual contact accompanied by traumatic injuries. The whole thing rules out the hypothesis of an encounter that got out of control and points to non-consensual violence. The autopsy doesn't speak volumes, but it dismantles point by point the web of coincidence. Outside the white room, soil science echoes. Samples collected from the grave, grain size, mineral composition, organic matter, birch pollen, match the residue embedded in the trunk carpet and on the shovel seized from Thomas K's garage. An environmental signature difficult to falsify. On the access trail, tire tracks photographed before the rain show, a tread pattern and width consistent with the model of his vehicle. It's not an absolute identity, but it's another firm step in the same direction. When everything is considered together, the compression time required to kill, the defensive wounds, the signs of sexual violence, the silent journey that ends in disturbed earth and hotel fabric, the word panic loses its meaning, and accident doesn't hold water. A map of decisions remains. Keep quiet, clean, load, conceal. The forensic medical examiner's letterhead comes with a stamp and time stamp. On the investigator's desk, photographs of trails and soil graphs line up with phone records. And as the report breaks down the version and fits the missing pieces together, the case changes temperature. Because from this point on, each piece of evidence gains its own voice, and what comes next is still in flux. At the Copenhagen court in the fall of 2011, the case went from noise to a sequence. The prosecution laid out the chain of evidence like a flashing light. CCTV from the lobby and the third floor recording the couple's entry into 314 and the following day with him leaving alone. Electronic key fob logs closing the time window. Luminol reactions in the bathroom and headboard. The cadaver dog signaling the closet. Long blonde hair in the trunk of the Volkswagen. Textile fibers with a pattern identical to the hotel bedspread. And a microcosm of soil that belonged neither to his city nor to the hotel's surroundings. The autopsy crowned the objective narrative. Asphyxiation by manual strangulation, 2 to 3 minutes of continuous compression, defensive wounds and evidence of non-consensual sexual assault. Cell phone tracking traced antennas northward in the early morning hours, converging on the area where the body was found. At the entrance, tire tracks consistent with the vehicle were found. Technical witnesses confirmed an intact chain of custody, cross-referenced reports, and replicable methodologies. The defense tried to shift the focus to the defendant. Diminished capacity, an emotional storm, panic after an encounter that allegedly got out of hand. The court called for a psychiatric expert. The report was clinical. Preserved imputability, no signs of psychosis or outbursts, organized behavior before, during, and after. Messages, cleaning, transportation, concealment. The theory collapsed. In the ruling, the court recognized aggravating factors: digital entrapment, extreme violence, calculated concealment. The guilty verdict and the sentence of life imprisonment arrived, with a legal minimum of 16 years before any release assessment. On paper, justice closed a logical circuit. In the family's seat, another time began, one that cannot be contained in numbers or pages. Outside, the city continued to move. Inside, there were questions about how to prevent the next story that, for now, is not over yet. Cases like Sophie's leave scars and, at the same time, prevention plans. Online grooming rarely begins with threats. It begins with attention, validation, and tailored promises. New life, money, protection, someone who mirrors their tastes, mirroring, and showers them with quick affection. Love bombing, while testing boundaries with small favors, moving conversations to encrypted apps, avoiding video calls, and imposing absolute secrecy. Warning signs, large age gaps and insistence on keeping the relationship hidden, requests to delete messages and disable location tracking, urgency for hidden meetings, offers of financial support in exchange for loyalty, emotional manipulation, just us against the world, isolation from friends and family. The digital investigation revealed why every click matters: preserving emails with metadata and headers, hotel records and key logs, CCTV saved before overwriting, forensic cloning with write blockers, tracking by ERBs and handovers, all stitched together with physical evidence, DNA, fibers compatible with FTIR and microscopy, soil palynology and granulometry, tire tracks. If something bothers you, stop, take screenshots, save links and headers, report it on the platform, don't go to the meeting, and talk to someone you trust. In Brazil, you don't have to wait 24 hours to report a disappearance. Call the police station in 190. Seek help. SaferNet Helpline. Central 180. Violence against women. Dial 100. Human rights. Public Prosecutor's Office, Defense Office. Cybercrime stations. At home. Agree on a password. Share your location with people you trust. Arrange meetings only in public places and with someone else, and share times and routes. In 10 seconds, this case was solved because digital intelligence met forensic science. Messages, records, cameras, DNA, fibers, soil, and the cell phone's path closed the loop. If this video helped you, like it, comment. Do you think cameras should cover all exits? Share it and subscribe. Activate the bell. New cases every day. Sources and credits. User-provided transcription, public records, and news. Reports. Original script with respect for the victims and their families.